sponsor.
Good evening. I'm excited to bring you Shah Kamali today, the undisputed, albeit 4-0. He's a professional. He's one of our own. He's from East London. He's a UFC. Well, he's not a UFC fighter. I'm getting excited, aren't I? He does mixed martial arts, but he has intentions to become a UFC fighter. So, inshallah, I'm hoping that he, inshallah, makes it. So, I brought him on today to give you guys his story about how and why he's a fighter. What was his motivations? Now, if you just look at him now on the camera, he seems like he's my size. He's not actually my size. He stands at 6'3". How much do you weigh?
About 110 kilos.
110 kilos and 80% muscle?
no, not 80%.
About 70?
About half, 50-50, you know.
50-50. Look at me, so modest. So I've got Shah Kamali with me today. If you haven't heard of him, after this episode, you'll be supporting him because he's one of our own. And I'm so excited to sit him down with me today and just uncover his motivations, his upcoming fight, the barriers, the difficulties, the cultural reservations, because we are South Asian and more precisely Bengali.
Yeah.
So all of those things are to be unpacked. I'd just like to thank my main sponsor, Ahyaan Estate. They're loyal, they're safe, they're trustworthy, and they'll give you the best deal. So if you are planning to let a property, or if you're looking for a property, reach out to Ahyaan Estate. If you are going through any marital problems, any family, domestic problems, reach out to Simplex Coaching. Now, without further ado, Shah Kamali, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
No, I mean, I remember we went out for coffee a few weeks back, and I must confess, and now I'm not a small man, and I have got timber myself, but alhamdulillah, you definitely you make me look like a dwarf, and not just in stature, but you're a fighter as well. I've been watching a few of your fights, and it would be selfish of me just to hog it to myself. So on the screens now, you'll see a few of Shah Kamali's famous knockouts.
Stands in at 6 feet 3 inches, 190 centimeters, 108.5 kilograms. From Bangladesh, he's representing the Fight Zone London. 3 fights on his record, 3 victories. Shah Kamali!
So let's begin with your haymakers. So you've got not only a solid right hook and a right punch, but your legs are like baseball bats. They're like steel bats. I've seen the kicks, and I, for one, wouldn't be able to withstand it. How does it feel in a ring?
How does it feel?
Yeah.
It is quite strange. It's a very strange thing. You know, when you first actually step in a cage, it's almost like, even if you're not a fighter, there's something about it where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm in this cage. There's only, you're locked literally in a cage, and when that door closes and it's just you and your opponent and the ref, it's like, when I first got in there, when I first was in my amateur career, it was like tunnel vision. And then every fight experience builds, and then you just, all of a sudden, you feel a bit more comfortable in there. But you can never really get used to it. It's such a strange feeling. That's how I describe it.
The adrenaline must be euphoric. You must love it.
It's, you know what? At first, it was great. But when you hit those highs, you hit as much as you go high, that's as low as you get as well. So as high as you get, that's as low as you're gonna feel. And the lows after a fight is quite. It gets depressing, man.
That's it.
Any fighter will tell you, you gotta in that period when you just want to fight, you become quite, you lose that sense of purpose. When you're preparing for a fight, you're preparing for, 10, 12 weeks for this one day where you have to be on point. You have to be completely ready to go. And that's a lot of pressure to put on one day. And it's not one day either. It's 15 minutes. 3 rounds, 5 minutes. That's it. That's all you got. And then after that, you're just like, what do I do next? I've spent all this time. I've done this. And now what do I do next? And then you have to get back into the gym and work towards your next fight,
I will come on to your next fight and your ambitions, but I'm quite interested in your upbringing. We're from the same upbringing, a bit younger than me. So I understand there are cultural similarities here. You're Bangladeshi, British born, Sylheti. So I, for one, if I were to go into fighting, the first person that will perhaps pick up a sandal or shoe is my mum. And she'll tell me, don't you dare go into the ring. Talk to me about your upbringing.
So let's start with my parents firstly. My grandparents, my grandfather, he came over to this country in the 80s. My mum came over in 86. My granddad, he was my nana, he was working in the factories, very hardworking. At that time, they lived on the Ocean Estate in Stepney, in Tunis House. So if anyone's watching that's from the Ocean Estate, they will know it's a very tight-knit community. So everyone knows everyone there. And my mum went back to Bangladesh in 92, got married, came back in 95, and with my dad, I was born in 98, my sister was born in 95, my older brother was born in 96. So it was all 3 of us living at that time in a 1-bedroom, I think it was, in Aden House. It was on the ground floor. I remember that house. My dad used to always, we didn't live there for the whole time. We moved to 2 roads down. But I remember that house, there was mice everywhere. It was just, the living conditions were very, very squalid and poor. For anyone that was living there, they would understand. I mean, Tony Blair came there in the 2000s, I think, when he was Prime Minister, and he said, yeah, this place is a dump. We've got to give them like £50 million to sort this out because it's not on, some of the it was just so poverty stricken and crime ridden. I think at one point it was the cheapest place to buy heroin in Europe.
What, Stepney Green?
The Ocean Estate,
wow.
Specifically. So this is a place where it's, it's not the nicest place. If you were growing up there around that time, is rough. Alhamdulillah. It's very strange how it works. You could live in one place but live 30 seconds down the road, and you'd be completely separated from the troublemakers, the delinquents, and that was a blessing for me. Even though I don't think I would have ever gotten involved because of just how my family is. I was raised in a good family, of course, so it wouldn't have affected me. But you never know. These are things that you can't. You can only chalk it down to, Allah. That's what path was written for you. So, But yeah, growing up, my parents always wanted us to just focus on education. So for all of my siblings, all of us got good grades. All of us went to university. That was the main thing for my parents, just education and,
And that's why you're unconventional, because you're a very well-spoken man and a learned man.
Thank you.
You're studious. And forgive me, but when I did meet you, I thought, usually those that do fight, not saying that they don't, but usually they don't follow the education path. Usually, if you look at, and I'm comparing to the greatest of fighters, but generally the theme that they follow is most fighters usually don't have an educational background. They have a crime background with limited education, but they let their hands or feet do the talking. So when I came across you and I thought, hang on, I'm having, quite a complex conversation here. And I'm thinking, hang on, he's educated. So you almost threw me off. I was a bit confounded.
I think a lot of people get that when they meet me. They're taken aback and they're like, well, aren't fighters meant to be stupid or something? I'm thinking.
Well, I didn't say that. But yeah.
No. But from other people, I get that.
It's a stereotype. Yeah,
it is a stereotype. Knuckleheads, meatheads. Just they have nothing. They have no other skills other than fighting. So, no, for me, I like to learn. I really love learning, and the thing about what got me addicted to fighting is it is one of the hardest things that you can learn. Mixed martial arts, especially. Fighting is one of, if not, I would arguably say it's the hardest sport, barring like extreme sports like free soloing or stuff like that. That's another category. But, when you're learning how to fight like this person that you're fighting has prepared 8 weeks, or even, let's say, for example, for the tenure of their training, they've trained 8 years and they're fighting you. You have to be prepared for that. And to overcome those challenges is quite, it's hard. It's a big challenge. And for me, I just like learning. And this was one of those challenges where, I started to get into training when I was in university. So I was learning in university and learning on the mats in the gym at Fight Zone in Bethnal Green.
Right.
And it's like they both play off each other,
It's hard not to. I can't discount your stature. You're 6'3", built like a tank, and that helps, right?
Yeah,
obviously that helps. But now, just from what you've told me, I've roughly got an idea of your upbringing. Because I, like yourself, I'm from humble beginnings. Grew up in Tower Hamlets, quite rough. And there's two ways for a boy in Tower Hamlets in the way he goes. Actually, three. But let's narrow it down to two. So there's one that he completely disregards education, looks at quick ways of making money, whether it's through drugs or whatever it may be, right?
Yeah.
And then there's your type of boy that can quite easily go into that arena, but because of his upbringing and because he's got a brain cell or two, he thinks, no, I'm going to stay away from that. My friends are good. I'm going to keep myself abreast from that, go to education, etc., etc. Is that something that...
To be fair, my story isn't so hunky-dory. I did get in trouble a lot at school, but...
Right.
That's why, I wasn't just some good kid that just went into fighting, because I did have I have a scrap or two outside, let's say, whatever, it's
Which is normal.
It's normal,
But you weren't, were you the boys that are smoking cigarettes in the corner?
No.
And staying out till 2 a.m. in the morning?
No, that's not me.
You're not in that category, right? Who doesn't have a fight? So again, you sort of followed that trajectory. You went to college, perhaps you got good GCSEs, and think about it, despite being living in an impoverished, destitute, crack heroin laden cesspit. Just looking for the word there. And I can relate to some degree because I don't live too far from you.
Yeah.
And alhamdulillah, we have as a community, and even as people from that community or other races, we've come a long way. We've developed. And it's not just us, the Africans, the English, everyone has developed to some degree. And obviously we're from a South Asian background, so the emphasis on education from your parents, that is our sort of ticket to freedom, to some degree. So I get that your mum and your dad emphasised education. And the reason I asked that question is because, what was your degree in?
Electrical engineering.
Electrical engineering. So you need to, it's not as if it's not a business, with all due respect, it's not a business studies degree or anything like that.
No,
it requires, it's technical, it's intricate, it needs focus and resolve. And you're not actually in the field of electrical engineering now, are you?
No. I train and I coach, that's it.
So you've risked it all now?
Yeah, you have to be all in fighting. In fighting, you can't be half-half. The guys who are half-half, 50-50, they never make it far. And it's not even just in the case of fighting. Whatever you want to make it at, there can't be really any plan B. You have to put all your chips on this one thing because, what you're always going to be hesitant. If you don't go all in, you're always going to be hesitant. 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Do I do this? Do I not do this? And then that's going to affect your decision making. Now, imagine because a fight is high stakes. Imagine I go into a fight and I'm thinking about, let's say, I've got some tasks due for my boss the next week or something, or whatever it may be. Yeah, I could be thinking about something else external. Now, that's going to affect you in the fight, whether you think about it or not, it will affect you, because when you go in that cage, or it could be, for example, for the people that don't fight, relate to it in a different way, in a certain business meeting or in a certain any endeavor you want to succeed at. You're gonna, if you're 1 foot out, then you might as well not really do it. You know, you have to find something that you want to really pursue, and it's hard for a lot of people to find that. And because to find it, you have to try things. You know, I didn't start training martial arts when I was a child. I didn't do any sort of martial arts training. I started when I was 20 years old. So for me, you know, it's like, it's not something that was with me my whole life.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's not something that was with me my whole life. There's no one in my family that's an athlete either, professional athlete. There's no one in my community that I can look to even. You know, when I was growing up, there's no professional Bangladeshi athletes that you can look up to and say, that's who I want to be like. There was none. You know, people would say, I don't know, Amir Khan's Pakistani. It's not really my community. My community is Bangladeshi, East London kind of. That's who I grew up around. That's the people I'm seeing. That's my environment. So, you know, for me, it all adds up.
Absolutely. I think you are definitely one of the very first British Bangladeshis born here that are championing and pioneering us going to the sports. It's remarkable, and I think even though you're quite modest and humble, mashallah, you know, there are so many kids that are looking up to you and think, you know, they're not your stature, and I don't think many of them will be, but they also have a chance. I mean, we are trying to make breakthroughs in football and all these other sports.
Yeah.
And I usually get the racist, you know, and they are racist. That, you know, and I'll be more than happy to say it to them that the football organisations in this country, they are racist. And I think with Africans, they had no choice, but essentially they endured a lot of racism in the 80s, 70s, and their talent spoke. And there's so many British African players. Look at the England squad, for argument's sake. But for us, we're going through that battle they went through in the 1980s and 70s. And you know, I remember just a quick story. I went, we were trialling, me and my cousin, he's an avid footballer, went to try for a semi-pro football team. And fair enough, if I wasn't good enough, that's fine. But he's actually played for semi-pro football teams, and they sort of singled us out. And obviously that got under my skin because I'm not used to being... And I thought, you know what, we can either have it out now with this football team and all the rest of it. But then it sort of hit me that when you come out of our bubble, then you realise what England is.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't want to digress into that. More importantly, you are a role model for so many, just not just the Bangladeshi, the Pakistani community, all the communities. And if you look at the sort of South Asian Muslim community, so to speak, Amir Khan is someone that has, I think, incredibly done well.
Yeah.
From a British perspective, and he does represent us. However, there's some of these things that he does, he's a bit lost himself a bit. And I'm not saying that if I was in his position, I may not do otherwise, but I'm not in his position. But he has lost himself a bit, but I don't want to judge him. He's a great fighter, and he was at his time. Back to you. So you've had 4 fights, and I said undisputed, and you are. You know, that people say, oh, you need to have 10, 11, 12 fights and then lose, but you are still undisputed. At this moment in time, you're undisputed. You haven't lost a fight. I do want to bring your mum and dad into it. Thank you for giving me the sort of socio-economic background. But because I'm from your culture, how did you persuade your mum and dad that, mum, dad, I may get kicked in the head by guys that are similar weight to me, pound for pound, and, you know, there is every element in your sport. Boxing is dangerous. I'd argue UFC is even more dangerous. People say boxing is more dangerous. Boxing and get kneed in the head or kicked in the head. And I do not want to get kicked by you. So how do you persuade your mum and dad at this moment in time? And bear in mind, we're like, our families are connected. So your uncles have a say, your wider cousins have a say. How did you appease them or persuade them that, mum, it's all right if I get kicked in the head. This is what I love doing.
That's the thing. I did not go up, tell my parents that I was doing this. They barely even really knew that I was training, kind of. My friends didn't know either that I was training. I didn't tell anyone. When I decided that I want to learn this new thing, I didn't tell anyone, because I think that can inhibit your motivation in a way, because now in the back of your head you're thinking about, what will this person think, what will that person think, you know. Now I have to maybe appease this person's opinions or this person's perspective. You know, you're not finding your own genuine, authentic, like opinion of what you're doing. You know, you're gonna have someone else's opinion in the back of your head. There's a saying: too many cooks spoil the whatever. You know, the brew or the stew.
There's another one: loose lips sink ships.
Exactly. What was I saying?
You were saying that you didn't tell anyone.
Oh yeah, I didn't tell anyone. So I didn't tell my parents really. I was having these fights, and then one fight that
Black
I had.
and blue, bruised?
No, never. Okay. Alhamdulillah. So when I was having these fights, but one fight in particular, it went viral in my village back home, Sharfara in Sylhet. There's like a strong community there. So when they saw my surname, Kamali, is tied to that village. So obviously when they saw my surname, they're trying to figure out where's this guy from in our village. Yeah. Because how can we not know about this guy, innit? Right. So one of my fights went viral. It went all around. It came back to, I think it came back to my dad in a group chat or something. And then he showed my mom, and my mom was like, "What are you doing?" And I don't know. I just said, I don't know what I said, but I just kept on doing it. I think my parents still was just telling me, "Look, you got a degree. You know, why don't you look for a job?" At that time, to be fair, I was kind of looking for jobs. I was applying to all of these graduate roles, software engineering, whatever engineering kind of graduate roles there were, and I'm kind of glad that I didn't get those roles, because probably I wouldn't definitely be here today or in the position that I'm in or on the path that I'm on. But my mum always checks, whenever I come back from a fight, my mum always checks my face for bruises. And I find it funny. But alhamdulillah, up until this point, I've only ever had like minor scratches, no broken bones, no bruises, no nothing. Just minor scratches, you know, so that's a blessing, you know?
I pray that it keeps this way, and I pray that every opponent you come across, you destroy them, because you're not even boxing, and you know, I haven't had a professional boxing fight, but I have been inspired and stuff, and boxing is not as dangerous as, yes, you can get punched in the head repetitively, and if you are, then don't box. That's the idea of the game, right? But with not UFC, but MMA, so to speak, you know, getting kneed in the head and kicked in the head. The career, you know, forget the career that you may or may not have, but in 10 years' time, you could be a cripple.
Yeah, that is true. I think it depends on the place where you train. So obviously, listen, all of these, some things that we do in fights, we don't do in training. Like knees to the head, definite no. Kicks to the head, you're wearing shin guards, and you're gonna pull your punches, as they say. You're gonna put the power down. If someone's silly, then they're not allowed in our gym. My coach Stuart is very strict with that. Like, sure, we don't allow people that intend to hurt their sparring partners. In fights, it's one thing, you know. Fights, anything can happen. You know, I've in one of my fights, I rolled my ankle really badly, and it was swollen for like good 2 weeks.
Was it during the fights, or?
It was during the fight where I rolled my ankle, and it was actually not the same for a good couple months. Did
you win that fight?
I won that fight, of course, yeah.
Undisputed, right?
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
And who are you fighting next?
I have no idea who I'm fighting next. I'm quite currently a free agent, so I'm looking to sign with any promotion, really, that is in line with my goals of getting to the UFC.
And I hope that too. Hopefully one of these days we'll see you in Riyadh season, and we'll be there, don't worry, double-breasted. So UFC is the goal, and the height is UFC. And if you were to, again, this is me hypothesizing, this is me dreaming a little bit, and I want to dream, so chip into my dream, right? So you've won your fights, you've won the next 4 or 5 fights, professional, amateur fights, you're fighting nobodies at the moment, and you get noticed. You go into the UFC, who would be your potential opponent in the UFC? And give me names that are known names.
The thing is, you have to start at the bottom.
Yeah.
Really, you can't just go into known names right
No.
off the bat.
So it's
'Cause look,
more.
No. This is business as well. Okay, you have to think of it in business terms.
Sure.
The first contract you get is 10 and 10. 10K to win, 10K to show, 10K to win. Okay. Now, if I was to fight the known guys,
So what does that mean? So 10 and 10, what does that mean?
10 and 10 is, so you get $10,000 to show up for the fight. And if you win that fight,
You get 10,000.
you get 10,000 extra. So you walk away with 20,000.
Okay.
That goes up by 2K each fight. So you get 10 and 10, 12 and 12, 14 and 14, 16 and 16.
Right.
So if I'm going into my first contract, I don't want to fight any known names. I want to fight the guys that they've just signed off, like, I don't know, like the guys who have no ranked wins.
Okay.
And then on my second contract, that's when you think about, okay, because if I'm on my first contract and I'm getting 10 and 10, I would not want to fight anyone in the top 15, because that puts you immediately up there. And the next 3 fights, if you win those 3 fights, you're in title contention essentially. All right, depending on how you finish them, and then it doesn't work. You have to think of it in business terms. Obviously, in fighting terms, you want to fight the best guys.
The more fights essentially what you're saying, the more fights you have, the more money you make.
The more fights you have, the more money you make. Essentially, the more, obviously, it depends on if you win,
Yeah.
and how you win, and if you're a star. You know, some guys, if you win in such brutal, devastating fashion and entertaining fashion, and if you're a good talker,
Yeah.
the second contract you get is going to be a lot more.
Then
So
12
this
and
is you have to in the business terms. That's how you have to think about it. A lot of fighters ruin their careers taking fights that they shouldn't for money that is not worth it. And think about it, you have a life after the sport. I want to take the easiest fight for the most amount of money. I'm not trying to take damage for the lowest possible dollar. You know, I'm trying to get maximize my earning potential as much as I can. Because at the end of this, I'm leaving at the age of 36, maybe, let's say, if you're fortunate in your career. I'm 26 right now. I've got 10 years left. Yeah, if I've got 10 years in this sport, then
You'll make millions.
yeah, you wanna make the most. And look, 36, you're retired from this sport. You cannot fight anymore. Let's say your body's going to be at a certain state where you're not going to be able to fight anymore. You know, you're not going to have the reaction speed. You're not going to have the same ability to recover. You know, your athletic prime is a short window, and you have to maximize. You have to use all your time training to get to the top, and when you get to the top, you have to maximize your earnings potential.
I mean, McGregor would be a role model in that sense. He made significant amounts of money. Maybe his Caucasian skin colour helped, but he is a man for show business. And until he met Khabib and he had that fraught relationship with Khabib, I was a fan of Mayweather. Did I say Mayweather? McGregor. So did Mayweather.
Yeah,
you know, he's an out and out businessman, and he's very smart at what he does. Yeah, I was talking about McGregor. So McGregor, I was a fan of his, and I liked his fighting style. And then when he met Khabib and Khabib humbled him, I was more concerned about his Islamophobic remarks. And I'm glad he is where he is now. But again, you know, the reason I asked that question, and thank you very much for explaining that to me and my audience.
Yeah.
And essentially, it is business, really.
Yeah.
You do this for business. If there was, and this is me, if there was a fighter that you'd like to fight, currently at the UFC, and are you heavyweight or
Heavyweight, yeah.
you're heavyweight?
Yeah.
Isn't there 2 tiers in heavyweight?
No, it's a different weight class. So
Okay.
there's light heavyweight, which is 205 pounds, and there's
Right.
heavyweight, which is the limit is 265 pounds.
Okay, so
120
you wouldn't
kg.
be light heavyweight, you'd be heavyweight.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't even drop weight to get into light heavyweight. You'd
No, I
only
wouldn't.
fight at heavyweight level.
Yeah, at this stage, yeah.
So if it was your dream, so you've won your fights, you've done the hurdles, you've had a war. Who would you want to fight?
Who would I want to fight?
Yeah.
What, current roster or dream fight?
Both.
Dream fight? I don't know. I'd like to fight Brock Lesnar, maybe, you know?
Brock Lesnar.
That would be a good fight, I think. Just 2
He's a beast as well.
big jack boys swanging and banging. What you know, that would be great for the fighting fans,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. And current roster?
Current roster? Maybe Cyril Gane. Cyril Gane is a good fight. I don't know. I just, for whatever reason, I just want to fight him. And nothing personal. It's
You just want to fight him
just one of those ones.
because you're a fighter.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Bloody hell.
But no one else really rings up. Obviously, the champion, John Jones. Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall, my coach has a win over him, to be fair. So that would that would make it, 2-0 against him from my camp. So that would be fun.
Well, I hope so. No, I think that the reason I ask these questions is there is a saying, how deep is your love? How high are your ambitions? That's why I asked that question. And you seem like you've got high ambitions, and you should. Because what was remarkable, if the audience haven't picked it up already, if you look at any sport, if you look at Lewis Hamilton, his father, every day since he was the age of 6 or 7, escorted him to the go-karting track, and now he's one of the best in the world. Or any footballer that you see, they have family support, parent support. You didn't have any of that. You started at 20, and you took the covert approach. You didn't tell anyone until your punching did the talking, or your kicking rather. So, up until now, the motivation hasn't been spoon-fed to you. You just grew up and you thought, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it hard. So big respect for that. Think about it.
No,
all of these athletes that grow up and are really successful, they have their entire community backing. And hopefully after this episode, I'm sure you have enough community backing. We're definitely backing you, and I want to see you reach heights like no one before. Because firstly, I have affinity. You're one of my people. More importantly, you're Muslim, and we're from the same background. So socioeconomic background as well. So I want to see you reach heights that none of us have. If you look at, I'm a generation above you. We haven't gone into fighting or football or anything of that kind. Maybe yes, business, and maybe achieving, working for the Silver Circle, the Big Four, all of that stuff. But that's still, I'd say, mediocre, because you're not. You're unique in what you do. There isn't. I can't think of any other South Asian, including the Pakistanis, that are doing what you're doing.
I think it's a generation thing, yeah. I think the youngsters that you see that are coming up now, that's where I think a lot of the parents are getting them into sport now. So at my gym, I see a lot of the kids there, like the Bangladeshi background, and their parents are really pushing them, So
pushing them to fight, or just to be
not
skilled?
pushing them to fight, pushing them to be skilled. I don't think you should push. I can't say this because I'm not a parent, but I wouldn't push my child to fight. I would push them to, have discipline, train hard. But pushing them to fight is a different thing. Fighting is,
they have to do it. They want to.
You have to want to do it, and this, I don't know. As a parent, it's difficult,
I can imagine.
Yeah.
You do some coaching, don't you?
Yeah.
You teach.
Yeah.
What gym do you teach at?
So I have my own little place, which I run with my co-owner in Teviot Centre in Poplar, called Tiger Style MMA. We teach there twice a week on Mondays and Wednesdays, from 7 till 9 p.m. And if I was to talk about kind of, because obviously we're talking about our community, and we're talking about ambition. For East London, Tower Hamlets, I want to make Tower Hamlets into the next Dagestan. I want there to be world champions coming out of Tower Hamlets. Yeah, because people don't know this. I mean, the statistics for Tower Hamlets is quite not alarming. It's quite crazy. It's quite interesting. We have the youngest median age in the whole of the UK. The median age for Tower Hamlets is 30 years old. The median age. The rest of the UK is 40. We have the highest proportion of young people in the whole country. We have also some of the highest child poverty rates in the whole country. We have quite a lot of inequality in that sense. But we have a large proportion of our communities, young people. And all of these young people, you can make these young people into champions. You just have to provide them with the service. I believe in my heart of hearts that there will be world champions from my community.
Immense respect for that, and I think you should lead the way for that. I think you should become
Inshallah.
world champion, inshallah. You made a bold remark there that you want Tower Hamlets to be the new Dagestan. You know what? I hope so too. Because while we go, I mean, Khabib and them guys, they're phenomenal, right? But I think we need some of our own, right?
Of course.
And then collaborate.
Of course.
Make it a Muslim army. But I think just from that, you're saying that the Tower Hamlets demographics, and I didn't know those statistics, that the median age is 30, and then there's impoverishment and all the other things, which means we could technically be the best army. Right or wrong? If you're looking at media and age, looking at impoverishment, usually makes men of steel.
It does. It can make you or break you. I think it has to be channeled in the right avenues. You know, there's a lot of, you see, all of the youth delinquency and all of this stuff. I think it can be bred out of people. Like it's somewhat, I don't know what, in terms of why culturally that it becomes like that, where they become like that. I don't know. I don't want to blame it on like genetics or anything, because...
Tell me specifically, what do you think? Spell out what you're saying in terms of delinquency. What is it that you think?
There's just people that have zero ambition and they just do drugs. They just waste their lives away.
So I think that I did an episode, if you watch, it's about the poverty mindset.
Yeah, I've watched that one.
Yeah. So again, I think it's a combination of factors, variables. The human being itself, we have different levels of ambition and risk tolerance.
Yeah.
Coupled by our external factors, and if you look at any community around the world, regardless of races, you'll always have people that fall into that net.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is to do with poverty. Yeah, because
poverty is...
You have like a crabs in the bucket mentality,
where
you're just trying to claw at people, bring them down so that you can bring yourself up, kind of thing. And we're never going to get anywhere with that mentality. We're never going to get anywhere. We should work together.
Absolutely.
As a community. Because I don't like it. Maybe like businesses in Tower Hamlets, especially, like some of them, they operate in a way where they don't work together. When you could work as a community, in certain communities is better than others. I guess.
we need, and I'll say this openly, we need to take heed from the Jewish communities in this country.
100%.
Look at their fraternities.
100%.
We can't go near them. They even own the buildings in Brick Lane that we rent off. So, but I think it's a breath of fresh air that you come out and you've noticed and acknowledged. Particularly, you're doing more for the community than I am. You're running a coaching centre. Can I just ask, is it just for boys or is it girls as well? Because I think we can't neglect them either.
No. At the moment, we don't teach kids, but we are going to teach kids soon, from the ages of 4 and up. Right now, it's just kind of adults. We started a couple of months ago, 6-7 months ago. So we're just getting on our feet, and then we have obviously plans to expand.
Someone that, and I'll say a good friend of mine, have you heard of Legends?
Legends MMA,
Luton. Legends, they're from Newham.
Newham,
and they're doing great stuff with the youth, boys and girls alike. So maybe you can collaborate with them, and that's it. There's the synergy and collaboration, right?
Yeah,
help our community. Lastly, in terms of, and I think you're an inspiration to me, but those that are watching and listening in, albeit if they're younger than you, age or older, what would be your message to them? And I get you're coming from a fighting stance, but I think you've hit something more deeper than just fighting here about unity and working together and helping each other. What would your message be?
My message would be, first and foremost, listen to your parents. I think a lot of people get sidetracked. I mean, I do listen to my parents, but at the same time, I have to make my own path. I've never been disrespectful in any way.
You shouldn't, no. Yeah.
Because you got to respect your parents first and foremost. Listen to your parents. Look, at the end of the day, we're family-oriented peoples, and I think we should keep it that way, and we should try and build more of a community within. So I think for the younger generation, the people watching, just try and engage more with your community. I think that's the main thing. That's the main takeaway, because people want to run off to Dubai, Qatar, I think you should focus at home first. Fix your problems at home first. You gotta try and, you got a community here. You can use that. You can leverage that. Our grandfathers came to this country and they built that from scratch, and it's something that we can't neglect. Especially, I'm second generation. There's going to be third generation, and the connection to their forefathers is going to be lost. But the way we can keep that and maintain that is by instilling those same cultural community values within them. And that's the main thing I'd say.
You're a very wise man, and I think a lot of things that you're right. I mean, me and my friends always talk about this, how our fathers and grandfathers came to this country as immigrants with limited English, and yet they built so much. Whereas us,
we can't hold a candle to
these
guys.
No, we can't. Lastly, thank you. That was coming away from the beneficial philosophical stuff. Are you more of a haymaker with your hands, or your legs? What's your preferred choice of knocking someone out? Because I've seen, I mean, the audience have seen it as well. Those, I definitely don't want. If I were to fight you, honestly, I'd have weapons with me. I would not come bare hands.
My opponents as well.
So my question is, what do you prefer? Kicking someone in the head or punching someone in the head?
Listen, people don't realize this, but I'm originally actually a grappler.
Okay.
People actually don't realize that. But I just, for whatever reason, I figured out that I got knockout power.
Yeah.
And I think I prefer the hands. The kicks was only there because in that fight I couldn't actually punch with my right hand.
Were you injured?
My right shoulder was injured. I injured it in training camp, and I could not throw my right hand, so I could only throw my left.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think I prefer hands. You know, I always liked boxing growing up. Boxing was the only. I only figured out what MMA was when I was like 16 or 17. You know,
It wasn't as big then.
He wasn't as big
No.
then. No, it was still very niche. The superstars were just about, you know, making their thing, and then obviously it exploded from
Are
that.
you a left-handed man or right-handed?
Um,
How do you think there?
both.
You're both.
I'm ambidextrous.
Wow. So that means your left hook is equally as powerful as your right hook, or?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah. I'm not sure which hand's got more power, but
Use both. And
Yeah.
in terms of your kicks, you know, and your reach is phenomenal. So you can kick someone on the head quite easily, right?
yeah, I had to work to get to that level of flexibility though. At first, I couldn't.
That's another thing I want to say, especially at your weight class. Most people that you fight are fat and slow, but you're quite different. You're quite flexible. You're faster than your opponent.
Yeah.
So is that something that you've worked towards? Because, you know, with your size comes disadvantages as well as advantages. Most of the people you fight are not flexible.
It's a massive advantage. It's a massive advantage. You know, being faster than your opponent, more flexible than your opponent. It all plays its part. You know, I think maybe it comes from, I don't know, all the hutki and that, all the
I wouldn't advise eating that. And I'm sure your nutrition is on point, and you're having, you know, select amount of protein.
Yeah, of course.
etc. Yeah, we don't know. Any final thoughts or words that you want to say to the audience and about what your future looks like? And hopefully, inshallah, I'm hoping, not just saying it, I do want to see you in the UFC, and I will be there with double-breasted, inshallah. I'll be there.
Final thoughts is just, of course, I've had a very pleasant conversation.
Yeah.
Share my thoughts on my future and whatnot. I think can't get caught up too much in these kind of lofty. You got to focus on what you got to do today. You have daily tasks, and if you complete these daily tasks, then everything gets put into its place. You know, I've been training consistently. Okay, so a little short story, I guess. When I started training, there was a lot of people, right? There was a lot of people that was training with me side by side. Now, a lot of these guys, they were inconsistent, and I was consistent. So I would see how much better than them I've gotten. Yeah, because they would train for a month, miss 4 months, come back for a month, go disappear. And in that time, you can overtake everyone if you just stay consistent. That's the main takeaway. I think consistency is key.
Thank you very much. You've heard our very esteemed Shah Kamali, our heavyweight fighter, talk. I wish him the very best. I think he's given us some key golden nuggets here to take away, and I think I can learn from it as well. And I think if I just latch on to what he said about consistency and grit, he's an embodiment of that. It isn't easy going into a ring, and it isn't easy getting kicked in the head. Excuse the pun. But he's done that, and he showed us. Let's rally behind him. Let's support him, and let's get him into the UFC. But also take heed and look at his behaviours and see what we can take from that. From the consistency, from focus, and you know, he's a fighter. He's exceptional, right? He's 6'3". We're not all 6'3", not meaning that you can't be a fighter as well. But look at what you're really good at and focus at it. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.